لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين، أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us tawfiq to be together and to have this session together after Salatul Fajr. We are supposed to have some reflections on Quran, and I thought it would be useful to benefit from Ayatollah Mutahhari's Tafsir of Surah Alaq. He had some sessions on Tafsir, and then they were made into books. It seems so far 14 volumes have been put together. So this is the last one, and this is about Surah Alaq. And it seems that in the introduction it says these sessions were held on Fridays in the house of some some of his friends and students, and it's about Iranian year 1350, 1351, which will be about 1971, 1972. He was giving these lectures. Okay, so he says that the whole Surah Al-Alaq may not have been revealed together, because some of the chapters of the Quran were revealed as a whole together. Some chapters were revealed in different times, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to tell that, for example, these verses should be put after those verses in that chapter. So he was deciding where these verses should be put. Whether the order of the chapters was also decided by the Prophet or not, that's another issue. Some people say even the order is decided by the Prophet, to have first Surah Hamd, then Surah Baqarah, Surah Al-Imran. Some say maybe not. And Ayatollah Mutahhari also seems that he says there is no enough proof that the order of the chapters also was decided by the Prophet. But what is in each chapter, which is very important for us, that is decided by the Prophet, because these verses then can help us to understand, previous verse helps to understand next verse, or vice versa. But someone like the late Tabarsi in Majma'ul Bayan, he has the idea that even the order of the chapters are, decided by the Prophet, and therefore he tries to connect the chapters with each other. So he says, for example, if the chapter before Surah Alaq talks about human beings, it's a Suratin, so ends with with human beings, then Surah Alaq continues with human beings. This is what late Tabarsi in Majma'ul Bayan says. So at least we can say that the content of each surah is decided by the Prophet. But maybe they were revealed in different times. The first verses of Surah Alaq are believed to be the very first verses revealed to the Prophet. So, اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق, and so on, are thought to be the very first verses that were revealed to the Prophet. You may say, when these verses were revealed, and what's the relation between this and Laylatul Qadr? Because we say Quran was revealed in Laylatul Qadr, Inna anzalnahu fi Laylatul Qadr, while we think that these verses were revealed in Mab'ath on the 27th of Rajab. So the answer is, in Laylatul Qadr, Quran was revealed as a whole, without being detailed into verses, because Quran has two realities. One as a whole is simple, basit, and one is a collection of verses and chapters. Kitabun uhkimat ayatuh thumma fussilat. So we have Quran before tafsir and after tafsir. In discussions about Quran, we had this idea that Quran has two faces. Quran, which is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Lawh Mahfuz, that has no linguistic aspect. It's not chapters and verses and letters. إِنَّا جَعَلْنَاهُ قُرْآنًا عَرَبِيًّا لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ وَإِنَّهُ فِي أُمِّ الْكِتَابِ لَدَيْنَا لَعَلِيٌّ حَكِيمٌ. So, what was revealed in Laylatul Qadr was not some verses or all verses of the Quran. What was revealed in Laylatul Qadr was Quran as a package of light, package of nur, ilm, hikmah. It's difficult for us to understand, this in its simplicity. And what was revealed to the Prophet over 23 years were detailed presentations of that simple reality. There is a hadith that Rasulullah says, every year Jibreel used to bring me Quran once, but this year he brought me twice, and this is a sign of my departure from dunya, my death. So in the last year Jibreel brought Quran twice to the Prophet, but as a whole. So these few verses are the first detailed revelation, the first verses that were revealed to the Prophet in Mab'ath, 27th of Rajab. Then Ayatollah Mutahari has a discussion about the condition of the Prophet when he received the first revelation. So he says Rasulullah's life has different stages. When he married Lady Khadija in the age of 25, up to the age of 40, Rasulullah had very special condition. So in these 25 years, he was spending great amount of his time on contemplation, ibadah, and being alone. These 15 years. And then he explains how Rasulullah used to go to Jabal al-Nur, to the he actually says, we normally say Ghar Hira, or cave of, but he says we don't see any mention of cave in the sources about this. And those who have gone, it's not a cave actually. It's just a place on mountain that some rocks have come and made a little space. It's not like a cave as such. In any case, the reason maybe that Rasulullah loved that place, because at the same time that it was far and there was no one to go and disturb him, but was also able to watch Mecca, because there are different valleys there, but from there you could see the valley in which Kaaba is there. So he wanted to see Mecca, and I think maybe at the same time that he was seeing house of God, he was seeing the condition of people. In Islam, always God and people come together. Yeah, this is very important. You cannot just think about people or think about God. A few days ago, I had a conversation with someone, and I was thinking maybe we can formulate Islamic understanding of spirituality and social life in this way, that our way towards God passes through people, and our way towards people passes through God. So my relation with my friends, neighbors, wife, children are part of my relation with God, but also my relation with God is part of my relation with these people. I say part is not very accurate, but at this time, this is the word I find. It's not part in its, maybe you can say it's relation with God is the spirit of your relation with people. And your relation with people is the container, or it's a structure in which your relation with God is built. Yeah, if you want to build your relation with God only one-to-one, it's very limited. Being with people creates a big structure. Then you can fill it with, love for God. So that's a summary of whole Islam. That no separation between God and people. So maybe this is what I say, it's not here, so maybe you have to be careful about it. So I don't want to say what he says, but I say maybe the reason he chose is that at the same time that he was seeing the house of God, he was able to see the people and reflect on that society. And when I was reading this, I was thinking of a comparison between our condition and his condition. Many times we see the situation in the world and we think that it's not very favorable, it's not very pleasant, and sometimes we may think how things are going to be better, But if we look at the condition of the Prophet, when he was sitting there and looking at Mecca, I think it was 1,000 times worse than what we see today in the world. When Rasulullah was looking at that society, which was a society which was like a kind of ideal for Arab Peninsula, because that was their holy place, that was where prestige was there, people used to go for pilgrimage, for business. Yeah, it was a very prime place. And still in that society, There was no knowledge or even interest in knowledge. There was not that much akhlaq except a little akhlaq. In Jahiliyyah at least they had some good akhlaq. For example, hospitality was very important for them. This was from Ibrahim alayhi salam remaining. Or maybe some of them, not all of them, for example, they were very careful about their promises. So they had some little characteristics, but for the most part, they were very materialistic, very much thirsty for money and power and some desires. So when Rasulullah is looking at Kaaba and seeing Kaaba is filled with idols and people who are in charge, for the most part are not religious, I think it was very difficult with a normal and ordinary human vision see anything good. Yeah, you should become totally hopeless when you look at Mecca at that time. And your heart must be broken when you see what Ibrahim and Ismail restored has become a place in which they have about, they say, 365 idols. For every day there was an idol. Not that they worshipped in one day, but equal to the number of days there were idols. So we should never become hopeless. My understanding from this is we are in a much better situation than Rasulullah. Maybe weapons of enemies are now more advanced at that time, or their tactics or whatever, but now the situation is not like that. Now there are many good people all over the world, lots of positive things, people ability to understand, the ability of communicate to people. If today you have a good idea, although it's not easy, but still you have some means to communicate to people. So we should never become hopeless. Iman and hope cannot be separated. If you believe in God, you cannot be hopeless. In Waterloo, I mentioned in Wednesday night, something that in some of the lectures also I have mentioned, but recently I mentioned there, how we look at the world. Sometimes you go to a place and you see this place is a place that has the potential of being a school, and it has a potential of becoming, for example, a place for sinning. And there is a fight. Some people want to make it a school. Some people want to make it a place for gambling and sinning. You work hard, they work hard. You see the numbers are more, they maybe have more weapon, more money, whatever. So when you look at yourself and people who are like-minded, who want to keep this as a school, and you look at them, you may lose your hope. But a mu'min should never lose his hope. Why? Because he knows that he is not alone, first. And secondly, not only he is not alone, he is not doing something and Allah is going to help him. Mu'min is doing something to help Allah's cause. This is not my cause. Yeah, this is Allah's cause, and I am trying just to be available to help. So it's very much different, seeking Allah's assistance is very good, but saying this is your affair and I am just trying to help, this is different, the issue of tawakkul. And then we have to remember, this is the point that I mentioned Waterloo from here. We have to remember that Allah has designed this to be a school. If you are a good designer and you want to make something for a purpose, what do? You make all the arrangements so that this would be not only the best use, but also something that other people would be not able to misuse it easily. So if I am going to make a masjid, I make it in the way that people cannot make it bazaar. If I'm going to make a school, I make it in the way that people cannot change it. And even if they change it, it would not fit. They think they are very clever that made the school into, for example, a place of gambling, but it's not fitting their purpose. So, when the whole world is a place for learning and ibadah, so I look at the world as a school which is also mosque, or a place of worship. When the whole world is made sacred for learning and ibadah, then for people who want to take it away from its main purpose, it's very difficult. For them, it's like they want to carry something heavy to the top of mountain. But we want to keep it as it is. You see the comparison? So you shouldn't only look at your power. You should look that the whole world is made in the way that is at the service of haqq. And those who are working for batil, they are doing very difficult job. But they are clever that they give you the impression or illusion that they have succeeded. And we think they have succeeded, but they never succeed. Batil can never succeed. So we should always know that the whole world is in harmony with the people who are serving God. Okay. So Rasulullah in those 15 years spent great amount of his time there. Ayatollah Mutahhari says, we can guess, he says al-qaida, means based on different factors and things that we know, we can come to this conclusion that when it was very hot, Rasulullah used to go there, and in the recent years before receiving revelation, all months of Ramadan he was there. And he says sometimes for few months successively he was there. And he was taking little provision with him, and he was used it in the way that he doesn't need to go back and come. And just doing ibadah and contemplation and thinking. When it was a long stay, then sometimes Lady Khadija used to take again some provision or send someone with some provision for the Prophet. So he was not. This shows also how understanding was Lady Khadija, because this was not a norm. And she could have said, now I am married, I need a husband, why you are going there leaving me alone? But she was such an understanding lady that she knew whatever Prophet does is for good reason. Also, it is interesting for us that Rasulullah didn't all of a sudden change. Because, in discussion about Isma, we say that according to Shia Islam, a prophet, even before becoming a prophet, should be free from sins and, immoral actions. Because it's not something that all of a sudden you can become a prophet, just you plug in and you become prophet. You have to be prepared. Then Ayatollah Mutahhari mentions a terminology, a new term maybe for some of us, and that is called irhasat, with ha, habaz, and sad, irhasat. Ulama use this to refer to some experiences and conditions that the Prophet had before becoming a prophet. Some mystical experiences, some kind of thing that could be signs of becoming prophet. For example, he used to have many dreams. But these dreams were not ordinary dreams that sometimes, we have something in mind and we are worried or concerned, we have a dream of it. Or for example, we have eaten too much in the night, so it makes, when you eat too much, it produces some films. This is the way some films are made. So, this was not like that. Even Ayatollah Mutahari says, it was not like dreams that sometimes are true, but need interpretation. In true dreams, sometimes a symbolic language is used. Okay? So for example, if you see water or milk, it can be a sign of knowledge. Okay? So even it's a true dream, sometimes it's not literally relaying the truth. You have to know these symbols and you have to be able to interpret the dreams. This is why Yusuf alayhi salam was given a special ability to interpret. If dreams, true dreams, were literally understood, then everyone could understand the dream of Pharaoh. So although it was a true dream, but it had to be interpreted differently. So Rasulullah's dreams were not because he was concerned about something in dunya and he was having dream. It was not adghath wa ahlam that has no meaning except that you have, for example, eaten too much. And it was not true dream which needed interpretation. It was very clear dream. The sentence that we have in Bihar al-Anwar, and Ayatollah Mutahari mentions here, is I used to have dreams that يأتي مثل فلق الصبح. مثل فلق الصبح. Like when sun is rising and you have light in the horizon. So dreams were so clear. Like dream of Ibrahim alayhi salam. That was very clear. He didn't see even a symbolic true dream. He just saw أني أرى في المنام أني أذبحك. So he saw exactly the same thing. So in those 15 years, after 25 up to 40, Rasulullah used to have lots of experiences like this. Even sometimes he used to hear some, sounds, So the very first time that Jibreel came down to the Prophet was in Hira, and it was in 27th Rajab, and brought these verses, starting with Iqra, Bismi Rabbika alladhi khalaq. According to some hadith, Rasulullah says that the angel embraced me and squeezed me or pressed me. So it was a like touch of two friends that have not met each other. You really hug each other, and said, Iqra, read. I said, Ma ana biqari, I am not a person who can read. He didn't say La aqra. If he had said La aqra, I don't read, means I don't want to read, or I'm not in a good mood. But he says Ma ana biqari, means I'm not able, I'm not a person who can, read. Again, he can say press me, and squeezed me and said, "Iqra." He said, I repeated, "Ma ana biqari." And then this repeated. In the fourth time, this is very interesting. After he pressed me, I found there are some like letters of light written in my heart, and I can read. So we have to think, for example, about many things, like why, at the fourth time, so maybe this shows that many times we try something and we don't succeed, but we should not give up. We have to keep trying, and we shouldn't expect, even if something is godly, we shouldn't expect the first time we will succeed. Because sometimes preparations are needed. So even Rasulullah, although he was almost prepared, but still for receiving wahy, the first time that he said read was not enough. These pressures, so Jibreel pressure. But of course, this might not be physical pressure. We look at it as a physical pressure, but he was doing something with the soul of the Prophet to make those things written down in the heart of the Prophet. So this was the process of bringing down to the Prophet the Quran. Quran in Surah Shu'ara says, نَذَلَ بِهِ الرُّوحُ الْأَمِينُ عَلَى قَلْبِكَ لِتَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُنذِرِينَ. So it's brought down by Ar-Ruh al-Amin, the trusted, the honest spirit, but the exact place is qalbik. It's not body of the Prophet, and it's not a mind of the Prophet, it's the heart of the Prophet. Of course, sometimes we use mind as part of the heart, but sometimes we use them separately. So it's heart. لِتَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُنذِرِينَ, so that now you become one of the warners. Now, there is a question here. Why Iqra? What is the meaning of Iqra? And why this word was selected? I think this is taking maybe good time to discuss. What is your understanding? Why it is Iqra?
By reading, this is your first step towards acquiring knowledge.
So first, what does Iqra mean?
Read.
Yeah, so what does read require?
Something to be written.
Yes.
So basically, the Quran was the actual miracle. So Iqra, it was like the order to start reading the miracle, which is the Quran. That's it refers to back to the Holy Book.
If Ayatollah Mutahari says, if I just talk to you, this is not Iqra. This is not Qira'ah. If you tell me something and I tell people, again, this is not Qira'ah. So it's quotation, I quote you, I say, you said this. Qira'ah is to have a text and you narrate what is written, not something just someone said or you want to say. Okay? So, iqra is to narrate, to communicate, to relay something which is written. Okay? But this does not mean that Rasulullah received a written paper or text, a letter or a book. This means that something was written, but not in the worldly sense necessarily. You know, we say, إِنَّهُ لَقُرْآنٌ كَرِيمٌ فِي كِتَابٍ مَكْنُونٍ. That hidden book from which the Quran comes, and Quran still is also there, because departure of the Quran is not by living there. We call it kitab, but is it written on paper or skins? No. But still we say kitab. And here I want to a little bit expand it, so I may say some of the things which are different from here. My understanding is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran has lots of emphasis on two things. I'm not saying there are no other things, but I'm saying two things draw my attention really. One is to transform or to present will as qawl. Will, irada, into word. إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون. Why he should say kun? Why he needs to say kun? Just he should will and then happens. But when he really wants something, he says be. Of course, I'm not saying he physically says be, but whatever happens, Quran puts it in this way to us, that there is irada of Allah and there is word of Allah. Word, kalima, is very important in the Quran. And you know, we have kalima in the sense of revelation, we have even kalima for creation. قُلْ لَوْ كَانَ الْبَحْرُ مِدَادًا لِكَلِمَاتِ رَبِّي. Yeah, so these kalimat are not revelation or scripture. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, in my humble understanding, that anything to happen before happening should become a word. Okay? This is very important. So Allah يقول له كن فيكون. Just as a kind of example, but it's not doing justice. Like, you know, when we want to make some transactions in fiqh, for example, marriage or divorce, we somehow imitate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We do insha'ul aqd, yeah, with words. These words are very important. It should be said with maximum honesty, and it should be a kind of what can I say? It should be your firm standpoint. Yeah, but this is not only for marriage or buying or selling or ijara that we use words. When I give you my word, it should be again with maximum. For example, I say, could you help me with doing this? And you give me a promise. It should be with maximum commitment. When you give your word, means you are giving me your dignity, your spirit. Yeah, it's not something we just say, okay, this word is very cheap, I say. So word should mean this is the very last thing that comes from you as a summary of you. So you have my word, means you have me. Unfortunately, words have lost their weight. In Islam, giving promise to people is not wajib most of the time. Sometimes it's wajib. For example, I promise my family to look after their needs. This is wajib. Whether I promise or not, I have to do it. Yeah? So, but most of the promises that we give might be mustahab or even not mustahab. Yeah? For example, someone wants to do something good, I promise, this is mustahab. Someone just wants to do something and there is no good purpose, but still I say, okay, I want to help you. Maybe it's not mustahab even if we don't see this is going to please Allah, for example, but it's okay. Or maybe it's mustahab because at least you want to make one moment happy. Anyway, it's not necessarily wajib. Most of the time it's not wajib. But even these things which are not wajib and may not even be mustahab, when we promise, then it's wajib to keep it. Because it doesn't matter whether you have given it to a child or adult or was for something important or not. When you give your word, then it means you have given yourself. And then you can only free yourself by implementing what you have said. Like I become your slave and I can only free myself from this burden when I do what I have promised. Okay? So now you have to be very careful about promises to KLC. When you join. So, we have to be very careful about words. Imagine if Muslims had only one quality, that people say all over the world, if a Muslim gives you a promise, he would never let you down. If we had just only this quality, I think we didn't need to do anything more. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He wants to say something, it's very, very decisive and it's going to happen, He says, إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُ إِذَا أَرَادَ شَيْئًا أَنْ يَقُولَ لَهُ كُنْ. Okay, so He says. But in my humble understanding, if He wants to say something is extra decisive, then He says it's written. لَقَدْ كَتَبْنَا فِي الزَّبُورِ مِنْ بَعْدِ الذِّكْرِ أَنَّ الْأَرْضَ يَرِثُهَا عِبَادِيَ الصَّالِحُونَ. Or كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ, or Salat Kitaban Mawquta. So this is said, but it's also written. So it seems to me that this shows that there is no way you can think it's going to change. Even, of course, His word is not going to change, but because these terms have different levels of conveying the meaning, so, and Quran is very, very accurate. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He wants to say something, is very, very decisive and fixed, then He says, it's written. maybe you have also this experience. When you have an idea in your mind, for example, you have been reflecting on some points and you have come to some conclusion. As long as it is in your mind, still it is yours, and maybe you understand it. But if you want to make it more clear and understand it better, say it. Any idea, when you say it, it becomes better. And sometimes you see you have an idea and you cannot say it, so you realize still you have to work on it. You know? Because no matter how abstract and difficult is the idea, there must be a way to say it. Either in the normal sense, or if it is really deep, Allah gives you the power of using mathal. Mathal is for those things that is very difficult to say them literally, but Allah gives you a way to bring them, down to a level that people can understand. It's simplification. So masal is very important part of hikmah. So if you can say it, it means you have understood it better and you can communicate it better, and it settles in you also better. But after saying it, if you manage to write it down, it becomes even better. And when you write something down, it takes you extra energy to write down. I had an experience when it was last year when I was asked by a Scottish Parliament to speak. You remember last year. So they told me I have 4 minutes and 400 words. Okay? So, first of all, what to say, how to say, how much to say, all are there. But when you want to, suppose you made your decision, you know what you want to say, but when you want to put it in words, it's very difficult. And when you want to write it down, what was very interesting for me was, for example, I don't know, first was 1,000 something words, because first you have to write more. You shouldn't write less and expand. You should write more and reduce. Yeah? Because first you have to bring all the important things on the paper and then you can compare them. So I wrote something, I don't know, about 1,000 words, and then I was reading and deleting. Initially it was easy, but it became very difficult. Sometimes I was thinking that I have to, for example, reduce 2 words here, but something is missing. So I thought maybe it's a good practice to write down and then have a limit also. Because if you don't have limit, you say everything. Put a limit for yourself, and then you would see how every word becomes significant. Because reaches the point that you see, I cannot delete this word. If I delete this word, the whole concept will be missed. So writing down is a great experience, and even I heard, I am not very much, I didn't follow up, but maybe some of you know this. There was a presentation someone had when I went to US a few years ago. I was in a Mennonite church in Akron. And a lady who had suffered tragedy because her husband, I think while they were for some missionary work or charity work, the husband had accident and died, and she had a young child, and she was very sad. Then after that, she worked on psychological, like therapy, and she said something. I didn't follow up that much. I was been thinking, but I didn't read about it. But maybe some of you know, you can share with us. That one doctor said, write down in few words your problem. But in the minimum words, what is your problem? And think about it. And if you are sure that's the problem, write it down and put it somewhere. Then your problem goes away. I don't know, have you heard this? That if you write down your problem in the minimum words, there is nothing extra. So all your problem then becomes, this is my explanation, she didn't explain, but maybe it's like this. When you manage to bring all your problem into few words, then rest of your mind becomes free. Then you see, it's not that everything is, problematic. So you first empty rest of your mind, and second, you distance problem from yourself by looking at the problem. When the problem is written and it's not in the mind, it psychologically gives you the impression that problem is outside me, not inside me. Actually, most of our problems, if we don't give enough attention to them, becomes outside, because we bring problems and suffer. For example, of course, this is I hope it's not misunderstood, but suppose we lose a very dear one. It's very sad, very, very sad. But how much this is going to sadden you, it's partly on you, partly on the musibah. Yeah? You can make musibah greater than it is, you can make it less than it is, you can keep it as it is supposed to be. It's very much up to us also. I can day and night think about this and become depressed. Or I can ignore it completely, which is not good. But I have to have a wise way of keeping this musibah remembered, but not too much, keeping me away from my duties. So, maybe by writing down, and especially writing down in this careful way, not when you write tens of pages, when every word is carefully selected, then you can think that that has become a replica of your mental condition. Then some amazing things happen, that you can free yourself from that and rely on that replica. Okay? Or for example, I can give you 1 hour lecture, or I can try to make 1 hour lecture into 1 sentence or 2 sentences. Or at least I give 1 hour lecture, but at the end I say 2 sentences, I say remember these 2 sentences. It's very much different than just saying 1 hour lecture. One of the, I think, reasons people are very moved by poem is because in poem, words are very carefully selected, and if you change the order or the words, it would not become poem. Therefore, this remains in the mind. You take it seriously. Because someone not only thought about the idea, very much thought about the presentation, and then the presentation remains. You know, it's like, for example, if you bring all different types of food and just put it there, it may not be as effective as you bring less food, but put it in a very special design. The design remains. Anyway, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran has a qawl, hadith, this type of thing, and also has kitaba, writing down. So Allah said to the Prophet, Iqra, read. It's not even recite, because recite is tilawa. Iqra. There is something written and you should read that. What is written? The concept is there, but it was written in the heart of the Prophet as words. Okay? So, if you look at Lawh Mahfuz, there is no letters, but that concept is brought down to the heart as letters. So the Prophet is looking at his heart and reading those letters. Inshallah, mu'mineen in heaven should be able to do this. We had this discussion. When mu'min goes to heaven, he will be told, Iqra warqa, or Iqra was'at. Read and rise. Yeah? And adadu daraj al-jannah, adadu ayah al-Quran. So depending how much you read the Quran, you will rise. But how are you going to read? You cannot have a Quran with you and say, I'm going to read, I am very good, reciter and I will read. Or I have Hafiz. No. My understanding is, you look at yourself and depending how much you have absorbed Quran, you read. Indeed, you don't need even to read. It becomes introduce yourself. So, by introducing yourself, they will realize how much you have implemented the Quran. So, Rasulullah was looking at his heart, not physical heart, of course, and finding words of Quran written by light. And when something is written like this, you will never forget. When certain events happen and mix with your emotions, you will never forget. Yeah? One person was saying this, it might be true. I see some point in it. For example, sisters normally have better memories than men. Yeah?
Yes, 100%.
So, one reason is because they are stronger in emotions. So, when something happens, it's not only a kind of information or idea in the mind, it's marking their emotions. And therefore they can remember it better. Yeah? So if a woman, for example, receives a gift and a man receives a gift, maybe the man does not emotionally get involved that much, but a woman gets involved. Or saying good words or bad words, whatever. So if your emotions are involved, you remember better. Yeah? But receiving revelation is even more than this. It's not just like a woman receiving a very great gift. It's more than this even, because even goes deep to the heart. It's not, because emotions are very important, but not necessarily going to the core. But when something is, with this pressure of Jibreel coming, and it's like a big electrical shock. Of course, this is not a good example. It's a very positive, it's very nice, but it's a big thing. You can never forget it. We read the Quran and we can forget, because we are not emotionally and spiritually, connected. But Rasulullah, when the Quran comes, it goes up to the core of his soul, to the sir of his wujud. You can never forget it. Like poets, many times when they make a poem, they remember. Not always, but if it's very brief and very precise and very beautiful, they can never forget it. So, Rasulullah used to read those letters of light which were written, we can say, in script, like in scripts. And this is why it is called Iqra. It doesn't need to be a paper in front of the Prophet and say, read this. Okay? And I think this also explains why Jibreel asked him to read when there was nothing in front of the Prophet, because the Prophet could say, what should I read? Yeah. So he asked him to read because he wanted to see whether Prophet is perhaps able to read something or not. And he tried and he tried, because the permission should come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Rasulullah started reading. Okay, I stop here. Inshallah, we can continue tomorrow. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.